Good afternoon. What's going on, everybody? I'm Miles, and I'm wearing yellow. It's a yellow shirt from one of my favorite bands, so it's happening. You're just gonna have to deal with it. Here we are. Let's do it. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you've been doing well. Hope you've been staying safe, staying healthy, all those things. And if you're new here, welcome. My name's Miles. This is Miles Does Music. And here we talk about things that have to do with music, whether it be music theory, techniques on the guitar, bass, or in terms of songwriting in general, or music equipment. You know, pretty much anything that falls underneath that category, I'm going to try to cover on this channel. So if you haven't already, consider hitting that like button and then hitting that subscribe button so that you can come back and see the rest of the stuff that I've got. All right, let's get into it. Today I wanted to do something a little bit different. I've had a script for this episode sitting on top of my printer for a couple videos now, and I've just been putting it off because I've been kind of swamped with a whole bunch of stuff. Lots of collaborations with other people, recording a bunch of stuff, doing a lot of songwriting, trying to just do many different things, including working from home. And this week marks my first day back, going back to work in person. And yeah, it's been interesting. But in regards to what I want to talk about today, is to cover some things that have crossed my mind over the past couple months in regards to how to go about conducting yourself in this time if you're someone who has a job within the music industry or is trying to make some sort of income be a thing by making music or being creative in general. So some of these things might not seem relevant now, but you know, don't forget, we're also still kind of technically in the first wave of this whole virus that's been going on. And we don't know what's going to happen from here. So I think this list is still worthwhile. So hopefully you'll check it out. I know recently times have been really tough for anyone who's in the arts, but also for anyone who has a job in the service industry. Typically those things tend to go hand in hand. I know for me, for many years, I worked at a bar because my hours were flexible and I would get paid at the end of my shift. And you know, it made it really easy for me to fund any creative projects that I was working on at the time. As a music teacher specifically, the current state of things has presented a very unique situation as far as still being able to do my job. Because for the most part, my job is reliant on direct interactions with students, being able to show them directly what I want them to play on the guitar or the bass, or being able to physically move their hands to where they need to be on the fretboard. And can't do that right now. And I know that it can be especially frustrating to be on YouTube or just perusing the internet in general because you have all this free time now and constantly seeing creators putting out this message of now's the time to create and encouraging you to get up and just be productive, do so many things, constantly just creating, putting stuff out into the world because you have this time. When are you going to have this time again? This may also be frustrating because maybe you don't necessarily have the means that you would need to facilitate doing the creative things that you would like to do. However, that doesn't mean that all hope is lost. So today, I want to present some options in terms of ways to go about working from home, maintaining your physical and emotional health, and also maintaining a level of creativity and productivity in your life, even though you're stuck in the house. It'll be useful for now, and it'll probably be useful for any other times that it's going to come up where you're going to be stuck at home, whether it be a pandemic or a snow day. So let's get into it. The first portion of the stuff is really going to be directed at music teachers, but there are going to be tips and other strategies that I'm going to talk about here that are going to be beneficial to you in your life overall. So be sure to stick around for that. Now, let's say that your main source of income as a music teacher is teaching music lessons. You work at a school, and now that school is shut down because there's a mandatory shutdown in your state, and now you have to stay home. What are you going to do for money? Now, the options that I'm going to present here today, they're not 100% perfect, but they'll certainly give you some sort of passive income in the meantime, and it'll just keep you from just getting eaten by your couch. Online lessons. I currently don't have a car, so I really don't leave the house unless I really have to. And in which case, that usually involves me spending money on an Uber or some other means of transportation. So along the way, I found that doing online lessons was a decent means of making some extra money that I could put towards these other expenses, and I didn't have to leave my house or spend money to get to a student's house. In the times that I would go to someone's house directly, I found that on many occasions there'd be issues that would be presented at the last second where a family remembered that they had to go to soccer practice, or I get to the house, ring the doorbell, only to find out they're not home. Or just a scheduling issue overall where you're not available when they're available, and The intention to want to meet up is there, but it just doesn't happen on a regular basis. And so it's kind of a burden on your weekly routine. But in the case of doing online lessons, for the most part, you can just be available when you want to be available. If you get a text from a friend that's like, hey, can you show me how to play this on the ukulele? You can either say yes or no. And if you say yes, you go set yourself up either with your phone or with your computer, and you guys link up directly that way. And it's pretty straightforward. Some things to watch out for would be a slow internet connection for one. This might seem like a no-brainer to you, but you'd be surprised how many families don't really think about the consideration of having a decent internet connection when it comes to doing online things, especially when you have everyone at home using the same internet at the same time. The other thing that comes up in this case is that if you have a student whose only place to sit down and do a lesson where it's quiet in their house is their basement, they probably don't have a strong internet connection down there. And so you can end up in a position where you feel like you're teaching a slideshow. Obviously, the first thing to suggest in this case would be to move location to somewhere where the internet connection is stronger. But if that's not an option, then another suggestion to consider is investing in either a Wi-Fi extender or a whole home Wi-Fi system. As far as whole home Wi-Fi systems and internet extenders, these are going to be long-term investments that you're going to be putting and installing into your house. And basically what's going to be is a means of expanding the span, the reach of a Wi-Fi signal within your home, whether it be to upstairs or to downstairs. And this is just a good option to consider if you rely on having a strong internet connection in order to facilitate certain activities, whether it be guitar lessons or work, whatever it is. You can find fairly inexpensive options for both cases online, and I'll link some suggestions down below. If your student is using a tablet or a phone, maybe it's their parents' phone or it's the family tablet and it's been put through the paces by their younger siblings, it might not have the best camera on it anymore. So it might be hard for them to see you, it might be hard for you to see them. And the same thing can go for whatever device you're using for your online lessons. Before considering for yourself or suggesting to your student to go out and get a new device altogether, see if the situation when it comes to doing lessons is something that cannot be salvaged at all. If that's the case, then you move forward from there. Another thing worth considering in this case that goes in hand with the video quality is the lighting. If you're in a dark room, obviously it's going to be hard for someone else that's looking at you through their phone to see what you're doing on your end. So you want to make sure that as a teacher that you're in an environment where the details of what you're doing can be seen. And the same thing for the student. Hopefully they're in a position where they're able to sit in a room where there's ample lighting, but you also don't want there to be too much lighting on either end because that can oversaturate the view where you lose the ability to see details of the neck of the guitar or whatever else. But I'll include some links for some lighting options down below as well. As an educator is going to be meeting with your students probably on a weekly basis, one of the best things you can do for yourself in order to keep track of things is make worksheets and save a copy for yourself. You save a copy, like either you upload a scan of the actual worksheet to your computer, take a picture of it, if that's the only option you have, or literally make the worksheets in your computer. I know for me, I've been using Guitar Pro to notate most of the music that I have to send out to students, whether it be a worksheet of exercises or an actual song. I'll try to individualize all the parts, stack it up so that everything is divided up, but I have a safe copy so that when that student meets up with me the next week and they have a question about a series of notes in a specific measure on the sheet, I can go back and I can find it and specifically look at what they're looking at. So it just takes some of the confusion out of the whole interaction overall. Makes things go a lot smoother. Along with making worksheets and keeping copies for yourself, also keep track of who's assigned what. If you're fortunate enough to be in a position during this time where you're able to be working regularly and you have a steady schedule of students that you meet up with day after day, week after week, I found out firsthand, it can get a little overwhelming keeping track of everything that everyone's doing, especially when you're dealing with trying to adapt to this new work environment at the same time. So, in which case, one of the things you can do that'd be in your best interest would be have a means of keeping track of all the assignments and who's doing what, whether it be a notes app on your phone, a Word document on your computer, or a physical calendar where you write down everyone's names and what songs they're working on, what assignments they're supposed to be doing, and how they're doing with it. If you could do all that, you'll keep better track of what's going on, and if you have younger students, you can also check in with the parents and let them know how their kid is progressing. So it's a win on all fronts. If you don't have a laptop with a camera built into it, or you don't have a device of any sort with a decent camera built into it, it might be in your best interest to consider investing in a webcam. Early on, this proved to be a pricey endeavor because webcams were in high demand since everyone's now trying to work from home. And courtesy of a few members of society that decided to be true garbage people that went out and bought all the webcams and decided to resell them online for absurdly high prices, it was hard to get your hands on a webcam without having to spend a stupid amount of money. But I think at this point, the prices have gone down. The webcam that I got for a decent price. I think I paid maybe $70 for mine. And I think previously I'd seen it online listed for like $300. So like, I think I did okay. But by investing in a webcam, what you're doing is allowing yourself the mobility to reposition your view that your student's going to see you from, but also have control over the audio settings of your environment. So if you want to have your guitar and your voice isolated better than it would be if you were using just your phone's microphone, you can run everything through an audio interface and adjust the levels that way and have complete control over how you sound and how you're being perceived by your student. And most webcams have the ability to key out the background so you can make yourself look like you're on a deserted island or something. If that's your thing, then yeah, I'm sure there's an option for you. Additionally, if the camera that you get has a good lens on it, it should function pretty well no matter what room lighting you have. As long as the room isn't pitch black, the recipient of your call should still be able to see you. So just keep that in mind when you're perusing your options in terms of webcams. Another thing to look out for, or at least to consider, if your students are younger, you may run into some issues. Now, if your students are ones that are taking lessons on piano or vocals, this might not apply to you as much. But if your students are taking lessons on guitar or bass, you can find there's some difficulty with that lack of direct interaction of being able to physically put their hands on the proper frets and for them to be able to see what you're doing firsthand on your instrument. Other issues that may arise are if their instrument goes out of tune and they don't have a tuner, and it will go out of tune. There's also the possibility that they might break a string and they don't have extra strings, which could also probably happen. If you saw my previous video poking fun at doing guitar lessons over Zoom, you probably remember some of the things that I was talking about there had to do with tuning and trying to tune a student's guitar over Zoom. And it's hard. Well, we could do it over this, right? You're asking me to tune your guitar over Zoom, right? That's what you're asking? Yeah. Okay, here, hang on. So, that's too low. No. Higher? Yes, higher. Much higher. That's not going higher, it's going lower. But if in general your students are on the younger side, don't think that it's impossible to teach them in this capacity. I don't want to imply that it's not something that's possible, because it definitely is. It's just going to require some special attention and some additional patience. Which, to that note, be patient. Patience is important because, for the most part, this is going to be unfamiliar territory to at least your students. It might be unfamiliar territory to you as well in terms of teaching lessons in this capacity. So, there's going to be shortcomings. Maybe your student doesn't realize that they're sitting too high up in a chair where you can't see their face, or you can't see their guitar because they're sitting too low in their chair. Or maybe they don't realize that they're sitting facing this way and the microphone to their phone is over here, and so you can't really hear what they're doing because the sound is being projected that way. There's a number of instances that can turn up in this sort of environment that you're gonna have to deal with. So, just keep that in mind and try not to get frustrated. And that includes issues that might turn up on your side, like connecting to a student and not being able to connect. I know for me, one instance that I had that was really jarring for me was I was in the middle of a lesson while I was using my phone as my camera. And because I had it plugged into my computer in order to maintain a charge on it, it decided to start updating. So the screen went black, the little loading bar came up, I had to wait for the little apple to come up, and then that happened like 3 times. I felt like I was sitting there for 4 hours. And of course, my student is just on the other end, wondering where I went. So it's kind of freaking out, but it turned out okay. For the most part, most of your students and their families are going to be understanding because this is new territory to them as well. So make sure that you're patient also. Reach out for help. I'm lucky enough that most of my work is coming from my places of work. I'm still able to maintain my regular schedule with my normal students. And so it hasn't been too much of a jarring situation as far as interacting with students. It's just really been a matter of maintaining connectivity and things of that nature. In which case, if I find myself running into an issue, I have no problem being able to reach out to my boss and saying, help. But if you're doing this stuff on your own, or if your boss doesn't necessarily know how to solve a problem that you might come across, reaching out to customer support for most of these platforms is pretty easy. Same thing with any devices that you have. Those companies are pretty good about getting back to customers about stuff. And I think for most people within my age range, probably have a friend that works in IT somewhere. So you could consider texting that person and being like, what do I do? If you're having trouble figuring out how to do something as far as incorporating a webcam into your lessons. Passive income. As far as options go for passive income during this time, the website Fiverr seems to be a good option. I admit I don't know that much about the website myself. I need to do some research on it personally. But from what I understand, you set up a profile and you specify the things that you're willing to do as jobs, whether it be painting, commission painting, arranging a string quartet for someone, or writing sheet music, whatever it may be. And someone that's looking for that service to be accomplished seeks you out, commissions you for the job, you do the job, you get paid, and I believe you set your own prices in that case, and that's pretty much it. Again, I don't know much about the finer details about the website, but from what I understand, it's a decent option when it comes to just making some money on the side, which is definitely something to consider for during these times when you're just home and you need something to do. Another option to consider is live streaming. I have a bunch of friends that have been doing this for the time that we've been stuck at home, and basically the premise is that you're just doing a set list of songs on a platform like Facebook or Instagram, and you're just doing a live stream, and you're doing a performance that someone can watch from their phone or from their computer, or they can broadcast it to their TV, whatever. And one of the other things that you can do is set up in the description of your live stream the details for, say, your Venmo account or PayPal, so you can have a digital tip jar. I've personally done some live streaming myself here and there because I've had some performances that I've been asked to do on behalf of my band. And so it's been pretty good. It's a pretty straightforward concept. The only thing that you want to make sure that you're doing when it comes to live streaming is making sure that what you're putting out there sounds and looks decent. You have to pretty much ask yourself, when it comes to your live stream performance, would you as an audience member watch what you're doing for an hour, or honestly for even less time than that? Let's be real about it. And if you're sitting in a dark room and you have just an acoustic guitar and no external microphone, you're using your phone, and the sound quality isn't that great, I can't imagine people are going to want to sit and listen to that for too long. You have to think about it as you would if you were looking at it as a live performance in a regular venue. You want to make sure that your stage plot is decent and that you look professional and like you know what you're doing, and that all the songs can go into each other pretty good and there's a decent flow from one song to the next. So again, this would be an instance where you want to make sure that your sound quality and your lighting are up to par. It's also important to remember that not everyone is in a position financially where they're able to give any extra money towards tips or anything of that nature. So in that case, I'd say probably the best way to go about it is to treat it as though you're not going into it to make money. Live stream because you want to play music for your friends and for family and for other people that enjoy what you do. And if you happen to make some money along the way, cool. Do it that way. That's the best way to go about it. Because if you go into it with the expectation of making like rent money, it might not happen that way. It probably won't happen that way. Because if your friends can't pay their rent, they're not going to throw what money they have to themselves at you because you're playing guitar. Another thing to consider in this case would be frequency of performances. Because for me personally, I only did maybe 3 live streams throughout this entire time that I've been at home. Part of it was because I was busy doing work-related stuff, or I was working on my own stuff when I had free time. But the other part of it is that I don't want to keep going out and putting out the same content to people on a regular basis, because eventually it's going to get to be stale. If you're in a position where you can switch up your set list each time you have a performance, then by all means do that. But if you're playing the same songs each time, you probably don't want to have a weekly show. And again, in reference to the audio and video quality, even if you're using just a webcam, you can still route the audio through an audio interface and run it through your DAW. If you don't have that, you can still go and get yourself a external microphone for your phone and route it that way so that the sound quality is better and your presentation overall is better. That's what I did for all of my live streams, and it gives you control over the audio, and you can even add reverb. Non-work related activities. This one can be tough because although you've probably been home all day, every day, it's very easy to fall into a spiral of depression and anxiety over just how uncertain everything around you has been. There's also the potential to get distracted by everything that's available for streaming right now. Which, by the way, I finally finished Ozark recently, and while most of this is addressing how to be efficient in terms of working from home, but also maintaining the ability to be productive and creative while you have all this time at your disposal, one of the other things you can consider working on is improving on your time management and being more receptive of the cues that you're getting from your brain and your body in terms of what you need to survive. We all need sleep sometimes. I don't want to believe it, but we all need sleep sometimes. We could all probably stand to exercise and eat a little bit better as well. Or, again, at least I can. But it's also okay to not just constantly be up at all times doing something around the house, whether it be cleaning or trying to take care of other things related to work and whatnot. Like, you can give yourself breaks. It's okay. And if you're sick, you should absolutely give yourself time to recover from being sick. Imagine that. So when it comes to being creative, or when it comes to accomplishing whatever tasks you have on your agenda, do what you can, when you can, while you can. That's the best you can do. I know for me, with my 2 kids being home, it's definitely a juggle in terms of time management, but it's also forced me to really be aware of the time that I have when I have it and to utilize it when it comes about, whether it be at nap time or after everyone goes to bed or while everyone's outside playing in the front driveway, whatever it may be. If I have the opportunity to run downstairs and take care of some stuff, that's when I do it. Clean your stuff. This is something that I'm sure we've all been doing already for the past couple weeks, past couple months, just to pass the time. I imagine that most of my friends, if I walk into their houses today, it's just like sparkling clean and everything's in some sort of order, or it's the complete opposite and it's just absolute disarray. But clean the environment that you exist within, and I'm imagining that'll make you feel better. But also take that cleaning regimen and bring it over to where your music equipment is. For me, that requires that I vacuum down here, and I try to just keep things in some sort of order by just like dusting off pedals and making sure that everything is in order and in a place where I can access it without having to search for it. If I know where things are, I usually don't come down here and feel stressed out about trying to get something done. So, something to consider. But also, cleaning your workspace. If your workspace is open and ready for you to get to work when you want to, it makes the process that much more fluent when you want to go about it. I know for me that when it comes to me having an idea for a song or for a riff or whatever, if I come down here and all my guitars are in disarray, I got to take them out of cases, I got to tune them up and everything, by the time I'm ready to go, that idea is probably out of my head already. And so now I have everything on a rack. I have a rack sitting right there. My guitars are ready to go. I got pretty much everything I need where it needs to be so that I can just grab it. And if you're like me and you got a large pedal board with a whole bunch of stuff all over the place, wires everywhere, it might be worthwhile to try to go through and just clean up what's going on there. Even if you just take a can of compressed air and just blast out the dust bunnies from between the pedals. Another component to consider cleaning, your cables. For me, especially, guitar cables get gross. From all the shows that I've been playing at different venues where the band prior to me going up on there spilled their drinks on the stage, and now my cables are going back and forth through puddles of beer, probably spit, I don't know. People are gross. But if you just take some Lysol wipes and just run the length of the actual cable itself, it makes a world of difference. And it's actually kind of relaxing. So, you know, if you're stressed out, find yourself a nice 50-foot cable and just give it a good wipe down. As far as other cleaning options, change the strings in your instruments. You know, we're in a position now where we're really trying to focus on cleanliness, making sure that our hands are clean, and making sure that we're not cross-contaminating things. So, you use your hands to play guitar. What better time than now to change the strings in all your guitars? Or your one guitar. I don't know what your situation is. I'm still in the process of changing all my strings, but it's getting there. And it just feels better to play a guitar that's got brand new strings on it. So now this portion of the video I'm going to refer to as the real talk. Because this is kind of like the step that we need to acknowledge as adults and as young adults that are musicians pursuing careers in music. And just overall, in terms of maintaining longevity of stability in our lives at this point. So the first thing we're going to talk about in that case is spending of money. Spend your money sparingly. You might still be working to some capacity right now, and that's a good thing. You might also be looking forward to a nice return from your taxes. You might also be waiting for that second government stimulus check, which, I mean, as far as that's concerned, I wouldn't be waiting on that. I don't have high hopes for it. And as far as a tax return, it might be a guaranteed thing, but you don't know when it's going to be coming. Everything's up in the air right now, so you want to treat your money with a sense of caution. You know, spend your money primarily on things that you know you're going to need right now, whether it be groceries, gas for your car. From what I understand, gas is pretty cheap right now, so that's a big win. But as far as clothes and other things like that, I'd say maybe consider putting those things in a wish list on whatever website you're shopping on, and wait till you have a solid chunk of money that, like, if you spend it, it won't be missed very soon after. Because honestly, those items probably aren't going to be going anywhere unless you're shopping Supreme, in which case, like, stop. But for the most part, those things you can save for when you have a definitive amount of money that you can spend on those items and not miss that money. So keep that in mind and hold on to your money. Literally save it for a rainy day. The hope is that this isn't going to last forever, even though it feels like it's going to, and like it has, and it's been going on for years. But hopefully we're heading towards the tail end of this pandemic. But for right now, we don't know how long this is going to be going on for. So, you know, just use caution when it comes to spending your money. If you got to buy guitar strings, you need those for work, obviously. It hurts me to say it, but you probably don't need to get a new guitar. That new guitar can wait, even though it's really nice. If anything has shown itself to be true throughout this whole process, it's that not only are creative people capable of adapting to new environments and new ways of doing jobs in order to get them done. Like, imagine a creative person being good at being creative. But it also has shown that we have the tools to be able to do this stuff on our own if we wanted to. I've been doing lessons online, like on the side, for a little while prior to this whole pandemic taking place. And it's been a decent means of making some passive income to add on to the money that I was getting from my primary places of work. And while it's taking some extra effort to make it into a functional thing, it's definitely something that's doable. You certainly have to take on more responsibility in terms of scheduling your own lessons, organizing your schedule so that it fits your life in general. But, like, you know, if you want to make the money, you want to make these things happen, you could find a way. It's certainly not perfect, but it's something to consider in terms of options that you can have for work outside of work that you can have a little bit more freedom in terms of control over. So in conclusion, I know that at this point it seems like a lot of this stuff isn't as relevant because businesses are starting to open back up, but also bear in mind, if you watch the news, there's some places that are shutting back down because this whole thing is not going on a steady schedule. It's not going a way that we would like it to go. And so everything's very uncertain. But everything that I talked about here today, there are going to be resources that you can consider for not just pandemics, but snow days, the summertime in normal circumstances. Because as a music teacher that's not working at a public school, it can be a rough go if you don't have gigs lined up for the summer. And this has been especially tough because, you know, while everyone's not going on vacation, everyone's just out of work, so they don't have money and they're not able to maintain doing lessons and they're just unavailable. But so are doing any gigs, so it can be very tough. However, again, I say, this isn't going to last forever, but keep all these things in mind and, you know, you got this. You can make this happen. If I can do this, you can do this. And with that, that's all I got for you guys for today. I know this video was a long one, but I hope you found it to be informative. If you have any other suggestions in terms of options for, you know, passive income or whatever else, leave them in the comments down below. And I'm going to leave a link to all those things that I was talking about earlier in the description below as well. If you like this video, hit that like button. And if you aren't already, please, again, consider hitting that subscribe button. It will really help me out, and hitting the like button makes this video more visible to other people on YouTube, so help me out. And if you'd like to support this channel further, I'll leave a link to my Patreon down below. Big thank you to all my patrons that are already supporting what I'm doing here. I really appreciate it, and honestly, without you, it would be much harder to get this stuff done. So, thank you. But other than that, friends, I'll talk to you soon. Stay safe. Keep washing your hands. Keep your work area clean. And yeah, keep playing. Peace.